Good afternoon, dear friends and colleagues. My name is Valentin Udaltsov, and I'm from Russia, from Moscow. Currently, I work as a software engineer for Happy Job. We are basically evaluating satisfaction and engagement of employees in other companies. And I do have a happy job there. So today we're going to speak about how to contribute to Symfony and why you should give it a try. So my story with Symfony started like 4 years ago. And 3 years ago, I made my first attempt to actually contribute some code change to Symfony. And so I made that code change. I submitted a pull request. And then Fabian asked me how that was useful, how that was relevant. And since I failed to answer that, he told me in a really kind and warm way that I was misusing the thing. And so I closed the pull request. And from that time, I didn't give up, because I really felt like I was kindly welcomed to the Symfony community, but I became more attentive to what am I doing, and I joined Slack. I started to figure out how Symfony works, how Symfony attitudes PHP, and what laws and kind of what approaches work in Symfony. So first of all, my kind of message to you, never give up at contributing to Symfony. And so today, I'm at the 51st place in the contributors list. That's not high, not too low, but I'm okay with that. I contribute whenever I can. So, and this year, in April, I also was invited to the EU FOSSA hackathon, which took place in Brussels, which you probably have heard about. And we had really great time there, so it was a really atmospheric event. We were coding side by side, doing pull requests, doing issues, discussing different things. And that was really inspiring for me, so I was inspired to actually start talking about contributing to Symfony more. And this summer in Russia, I also gave a talk about how to contribute to Symfony and why you should start doing that. And today, I'm really excited to be here, and I was excited there. You can see that in the picture. So I'm excited to talk to you. And before we start, let me ask you to raise the hands, the ones who already have at least once PR merged into any open source software. Okay, and leave your hands, the ones who have PR merged to Symfony. Okay, so you're really the audience which I expected. So before we talk about the what and the how, I would like to talk about the motivation to contribute to any open source software project. So because I think we would have more contributors if developers understood that contributing really makes them better in the first place. But of course, it's making the Symfony better as well. So I think that the first motivator, which is not selfish, is actually the necessity to kind of give back to what you get from Symfony. So imagine every time you compose or require some Symfony/library, you're actually getting a fully tested, battle-tested, documented, and nicely architectured by really skillful developers component, and you get that for free. And so a part of my motivation is to give back to that, because I want to participate in this process of making Symfony better, just to kind of keep the balance of what I get and what I give back. So that's the first motivator. Then the next thing is recognition. So we are all people, and we all like to be acknowledged and recognized. And I think that we also should talk about that, because we kind of feel satisfaction when we do something publicly, because like other developers understand that we did a contribution, we are useful for the whole community. And I think that basically doing any kind of contribution, by the way, the contribution is, an issue is also a contribution. So a bug report is also a contribution, not only a PR or a code change. So doing a contribution is like saying, hello, here I am, my name is Valentin, I'm a PHP developer, I'm a Symfony developer, and I have an opinion on certain subjects, I'm good at these components, I can propose a code change, I can review, I can help, and so this is what I call recognition, and the feeling when you are getting your PR merged is really satisfying. And besides, Symfony also helps you to get that recognition faster. So every time you do something, you're always thanked for that. Nicola or Fabian, they would always say thank you. And if you have a merged PR and that was a feature, you also get a news with your name, a news item with your name. You also have this short blog on the symfony.com showing people who contributed. And so this also kind of really satisfying, and I wish you all, at some point, have that feeling. So the next, and then the next selfish motivator, which might drive you to contribute, is actually to become an in-demand employee, because when you start contributing, your graph on the GitHub becomes more green over the time. And I always pay attention to that when I recommend someone as a developer to our company, for instance. Because basically when a person has this contribution graph and there are some green blocks there, this means that that person is really excited about development, and that person can spend some of the spare time to contributing to open source software. And this is more attractive to me with other things equal than a person who does not contribute. So again, yeah, that's a motivator to actually become a more in-demand employee, because I think CTOs, team leads, and developers do pay attention to that, at least some of them. So that's kind of a signal that you are really, you are excited about your job. So the next thing I want to pay attention to is that we are not writing too much code now, basically. So we are always invited to the company not to write everything from scratch, like to take an index.php file and to start, coding from a blank piece of code. We are actually expected to come up with some components which we know how should work together. We should come up with a couple of technologies, PHP included, for instance, to make the business requirements, to accomplish the business requirements and to achieve the goal which business gives us. So this means that we should not only be good at writing code, but we should be always good at the tools we are using. So we should know the extension points, what to extend, what to implement, so what to configure, how things might go wrong, or how things work together. And that notion makes us a really strong and better developer, because we can solve the problems which the business gives us in the best and the most efficient way. So I think nowadays this is a really important thing. And the fact is that actually contributing to components always makes you dive deeper and know how they are done, how they internally work, which kind of makes you a better developer, because you start mastering the tools you are using. And now, what I have already said might be applied to any open-sourced software, but I think that Symfony is actually the best PHP ecosystem to start contributing to and to be contributing through your lifetime. So why? Because first of all, Symfony has a great documentation. This is really important for contributing, because you know how things should work and how they might not work when you're actually using them. So you know what bugs, whether it's a bug or not. You also know how to not misuse things. And so documentation is a great, describes Symfony in a great way. Then Symfony has a clear maintenance and versioning and all the related stuff. So we always know what to expect from our contributions, when they might be merged, when we have to wait. We'll talk about that later more in detail. And Symfony has a really diverse community, so whoever you are, you will be kindly welcome to the Symfony community. You can talk to many people and hear a lot of opinions at Slack or while reviewing pull requests or discussing issues or whatever. So basically, you will be always helped even if you got something wrong. So I never had a bad experience when contributing to Symfony. Okay, so now I hope I have motivated you enough to start, because I wanted to put an accent that this is important to you in the first place, just to become a better developer, a better expert in the tooling you are using. So now you might ask me, Valentin, okay, I'm ready to contribute. What am I supposed to do? I've never been doing that. So I have a couple of, have some advice for that. So I think that step one is to become a sort of a bug hunter. So you have to become more attentive at your job or with your pet projects. Whenever you feel that something is working not as expected, not as documented, you should consider that as a possibility to make a contribution, because like most of the pull requests are still about bugs, fixed bugs, and most issues are about problems. But don't just run to the GitHub repository and create an issue. So I consider this checklist so to propose to submit a bug as only on the 7th step. So first, check the documentation once again and double check, because you might be misusing the whole component. I have already shown you the situation which I had 3 years ago. So then Google it, because a lot of answers are already there, and also this is also about misusage. Then ask colleagues who might already have faced that, and they either tell you that you are misusing a thing, or they will tell you that this is indeed a problem, and you understand that you might have a contribution. Then Google it again, because I have noticed that if you Google the next day, you use different keywords, and that might be a totally different result for you. So then there's also a nice way to ask about problems. There's a Slack with many channels, but the main channel for the beginners is the support, where you can always get a really warm welcome. And so try that. Then make a reproducer. Actually, this is a very important step, because when you start a clean project, the problems might go away, and it either gives you more information about the potential bug, or it explains to you why you misused the thing. And now the last step to do is actually to submit a bug when you are certainly sure that something goes wrong. So it's really simple to do. I think you all know how to do that. You go to the Issues tab and you choose one of the two first options. So you either submit a bug report or you submit a feature request, but we'll talk about that later. So you don't submit support questions, because you can ask them on Slack or consult your colleagues. You don't submit documentation issues, because there's a separate repository for that. And you don't report security issues, because they shouldn't be reported publicly. There's another page on Symfony.com explaining how to talk about security issues. So yeah, that's basically it. So you choose one option, then you will be provided with a template where you can fill all the fields in order to give the idea of what your bug is about. And that's it. Now the next step in evolving into the Symfony ecosystem is actually to involve yourself through the observation. So I think that before making an actual pull request, an actual code change, you have to feel at home here. And this is again a mistake which I made 3 years ago. I was not that kind of involved to actually do a pull request. That was too early for me. So don't do that mistake. Just start observing, and the main way to do that is to regularly check the Symfony blog, which is an awesome news page. Like, I think that this is the only website where I do read the news page. So all the other are useless. And Symfony constantly publishes news, which is really helpful. And so basically, for beginners, I think two kinds of news items are relevant. So the first one is about new features in the upcoming minor version. So in these news items, Javier explains what's the new feature, how it works, basically from the developer experience perspective. And the main thing which you can do is you can go to the PR where this feature was introduced, and you can check the code and see how the development process occurred. So starting from the issue to which this PR is linked, then through discussion with the core team, with other developers who came there and just reviewed the pull request, and finally to the actual code which was submitted. So this already, even if you don't contribute after that, it already gives you a lot of knowledge which you can apply in your job at the office or in your pet projects which use Symfony. So this is already useful. Another news to consider are the ones about the weekly reports, where Javier tells about what happened to Symfony this week. And so he basically shows the most interesting issues, the most interesting PRs which were merged, and interesting ideas which were proposed. He also gives you a list of the articles through the web where Symfony was mentioned. And so the whole news like that, they are really useful because you get an immense amount of information which makes you a better developer already. But as I have said, if you see an issue which you understand that you know something about it, and that might be interesting, and with high probability you will understand how it works, you can just press the link and go to that page, to that issue or PR, and either join the discussion or see how the development actually occurs in that pull request. So I would also recommend to subscribe to new releases directly through the GitHub tooling, so that each time Symfony has a patch release, you know about that among the first people. So I use that a lot, and currently Fabian released 5.0. I immediately had a message, an email. So after that, after you started reading the blog, yeah, the news appear there like twice a week, I guess, or more. But that might be not enough. So 2-3 years ago, I started checking all the new issues and PRs by myself. So I would go to the metro or to the bus, and I would open the notebook and check first the news page, and I would go directly to the Symfony repository and see what new issues appeared, which pull requests are there. And so this is also a great source of knowledge, because you might come over some discussions which are about PHP developing today. Like, for instance, I learned how to really easily optimize some hot paths in the code by just using one symbol, thanks to Nicholas, who submitted that PR. And after that, PHP CS Fixer started to support adding slashes to all those functions out of the box. But I learned that just because I was checking issues and pull requests very often. Then you can always have an opportunity to join some discussion about the PHP world. So this issue occurred not so long ago, this summer, and it was about some potential break in the PHP, when the auto-loading was broken, and checking for with class exists for classes which implement interfaces which are not installed into your project, like not in the vendor directory, it caused a fatal error from which you could not recover. And that was a great discussion with Nikita Popov, with other developers who are really close to PHP development. And so that was a really interesting thing, really, really educative for me. So you can learn a lot by just reading and observing the Symfony repository. And then you obviously are ready to comment and review. Once you became involved into the Symfony environment, you can start commenting and reviewing other developers. Please don't review the PRs which you don't know what are about. So like if you have never used, for instance, the workflow component, it will be kind of weird if you try to review a PR into that. But still, you can review the code style or some naming things. You can propose changes. All of that is highly appreciated. So, and you are always free to express your opinion in the issues which you feel comfortable in, and you can actually help other developers to solve their problems faster. And the next step, the final step, is actually to solve an issue. So at this time, you're ready to do a code change. And there are two major ways to find an issue which you can contribute to. So the first one, the most obvious, is to filter the issues by the label good first issue, which appear on a regular basis. And like I did that yesterday, and this is the list of issues I got. There's more of them, but they are about validator and translations to some rare languages. So that might be not an issue you can do if you don't know that language good enough. But all the rest are pretty nice to consider, but the problem is that a lot of developers know about this label, good first issue, so you might not, you might find that this issue is already booked for someone. So you can go there, if you find that issue, you can say that, hello, I know how to do that, I will start working on it like the next week. But sometimes developers, they kind of say that they want to work on that, and they don't, or like over a month. And so you can kindly ask whether you can take that issue instead of that person and start working on it. But as I have said, these issues do not appear too often, so you might miss an opportunity and somebody already booked or is working on it and so on. There's another opportunity to, as I have said, to track the new issues which appear on a daily basis. And you can resolve such a recent issue. Chances are it will be easier because the later issues, they are either already resolved or they are too hard to resolve, and like developers are discussing it, so it might be not as trivial as the new ones. So we come back to the previous step where I said that it's a good idea to monitor new issues and PRs. So now, how to contribute? I won't give you the full step-by-step guide because you can find all the necessary information at symfony.com, and it's more precise there than I would have told you within my slides. But I want to pay attention to the most important details. So you obviously start by creating a fork. So you push that button, and at that time, a copy of Symfony repository appears in your GitHub account. So after that, you have a personal link to your own Symfony copy, which you can clone. And then you open it in a PHP Storm or any tool you like to use, and you find that there are a lot of branches there, and you already know the issue you want to contribute to, but you have no idea which branch to check out. So let me give you a small revision of how the semantic versioning works. Please raise your hands, the ones who already know that pretty good. Okay, so most of you, but we'll quickly go through this. Semantic versioning is about 3 numbers separated by a dot. The last number is the patch version. The patch version is the one which allows you to submit bugs only, like to fix, no, you don't submit bugs, please, but to fix bugs only. So you cannot introduce new features. You have to, you can only change the code which is already there, and you can just fix the bugs. And you have to do that in a, you have to not break the backward compatibility. There's Symfony is cool because there's a list of things which you cannot, which are considered to be a compatibility breaks. So you can find a page on that. I will give a link at the end of this presentation, and you can see whether you are breaking or not. But within the patch version, you cannot do that. The next number is the minor version, which allows you to submit new features, but which also doesn't allow you to break the backward compatibility. Of course, there are changes which move the framework forward, and you have to break something, but at that time, you don't break it directly, you just introduce a deprecation. So the user can use the code in the way he used before, but he gets a deprecation message in his Symfony profiler or inspector if it gets renamed. I hope so. So you will have that yellow message that something functionality should work will work in a different way in the next version, and you have to adjust your code. So, but adding deprecations is a more advanced topic, so I think those issues should be ignored when you are a beginner developer, and they can start working on that later. But this is actually a topic which deserves a separate talk, because it's really interesting how we as developers can walk between all these deprecations and new features and still be able to push the code forward. So, and the first number is the major version, where you are allowed to break backward compatibility, but usually the projects like Symfony, they approach this really in a special way. So the last minor version includes all the deprecations which once you fix them, you can update your project to the major version, and you will have almost no problems, except for some directory structure changes and other stuff. So basically, we can see this process in the Symfony releases calendar. So, as you see, patch versions are not here because they just appear on a regular basis, and bugs appear pretty often. So, not really often, but I mean, new patch releases, they happen once a week or sometimes once a month, and they might occur if the version is maintained. So I think I don't have a pointer. Right, but the idea is that within the maintained version, within the maintenance period, which is green on the graph, the patch releases will always come, and so the bugs are always fixed if you are in the green line. Then the minor releases, so the second number, which is here, the last, like 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, in Symfony they occur twice a year, and they overlap a little bit within the maintenance period so that you can update. And the last release, the last minor release within a major release, gives a long-term support, which means that it will be maintained for a much bigger period, like the 3.4 or the 4.4 version. So in Symfony, they are .4 releases. So yeah. Another thing to notice here is that the last minor release and the first minor release of the new major version, they occur at the same point in time. Like today, we are history makers here because Symfony 4.4 was released in the morning when I was finally changing the slides for you. I saw that message that 4.4 was released, and 5.0 was released just just a couple of minutes ago. And so they occur at the same time. This means that the 4.4 will contain all the deprecations needed to update to 5.0. But 5.0 is actually the same code as 4.4, but all the deprecations are not there. So the code is adjusted in the way it should be without the deprecations. And that actually makes the code faster. So each new major Symfony release is faster because all the deprecations, they add ifs and other code paths which are executed in order to check those things. And the new release will be faster because there are no those ifs there. And yeah, they occur at the same time, so you can update easily. And yeah, so why I was talking about that, because you have to understand where to submit your pull request. If your issue is about a bug fix, then you have to apply your PR to the lowest branch where this bug takes place. This is pretty obvious. But this branch has to be maintained, so it has to be a green line. Otherwise, the bugs are not fixed, so the version is not maintained anymore. And if you have a feature, then you have to submit it to a master branch, or sometimes the latest branch is already has a name, and you might submit it to that branch, so like, for instance, 4.4. But generally, that's a master branch, so the master branch is the one which is currently developed, and then it will be branched off and given a name, and the master will be the next release, the next developed release. So the next thing you have to think about is to mind the code style which you are using, because any good project has a list of code style rules which allow everyone to share how the code looks like, and it makes it easier to read the code if you know how it should look like. And if you fail, so you can run the PHP CS fixer within the Symfony repository, but if you forgot that, you will still not be allowed to submit a pull request successfully, because there's a bot which will check that. And you can click details here and see which coding standard rules you have broken. So you will see your code, and you can actually also download the patch, which you can immediately apply to your code and make the bot happy. Then always add unit tests, even if the thing is kind of trivial. So the previous week, I changed how the configuration for the messenger worked, and I made that middleware are not merged if you redefine the bus in another environment, or another word if it will be renamed, as Fabian told us. So I also added the unit test, because that's not only the way how you see that the code works, it also the way you show how it should work. So for the ones who are reviewing your pull request, if they see the test and they know that it's passing thanks to Travis CI, they also know what you meant in your PR. They understand that much better. So always add a unit test. You will help the Symfony a lot with that. And of course, it eases the later refactoring which might occur. And you can check whether the test pass with the already included PHP unit script, so you don't have to download or install the PHP unit by yourself. You can just run the script and add as an argument the path to the component which you changed, and you will see whether it passes or not. But if you forgot to do that, or you broke some other components by that change, you will see that in the PR. So there's a Travis CI checker which will be red, and you can again go to details, open the Travis CI, you will see which PHP versions fail. Sometimes the failure might be related just to an available feature in the PHP version, or due to some, and actually these checks, they are kind of different. So some checks run on each component independently, some check the whole thing, and like there are some use the high dependencies, some use low dependencies, so many combinations of problems might occur. And then you go to the failed row, and you see what problems occurred. You probably can always try them locally. Sometimes the problem might occur globally in the master branch, so the branch itself is broken. That happens because because some, I don't know, some changes might be merged too early, or or something else changed within the in other components which Symfony depends on. For instance, if you have Twig bundle within the Symfony and Twig released a new version and something's different there. Okay, so I have no time. Yeah. Oh, okay, I'm finishing. Thank you. Then you might have a break here, but it's not related to the repository and to the PR you were actually doing. So that's okay. You either have to wait for the core team to fix everything. You just can write a message that the failure is unrelated. So you have to use rebase, and that's a separate topic. I put a link about it at the end of my slides. You will see that, and you can check out a great article on Atlassian about merge vs rebase, which will explain everything. Then once you have pushed your branch, you can compare and pull request. You can push that button, will already appear in your GitHub profile in the repository. Then you should choose the same branch you were submitting your PR to in the GitHub interface, because the GitHub doesn't know which branch you want to target your pull request. And so 2 quick points. So please welcome comments and review, and react positively to whatever you see, because everyone actually wants to help you. And sometimes we fail to express what we mean in a kind way, just because we are not all native English speakers like I am and some of you are. And that's okay, but just concentrate on the information given. Do not concentrate on the emotions the person probably have included to that. So we are all about the actual value of the pull request, and so basically the review is about exactly that, not about how to treat you as a person. So please be patient and try to read everything in a positive way. And be patient in the sense that sometimes you have to wait before somebody from the core team or from other developers actually pay attention to your pull request. So if you submit a pull request when the new release is coming and your PR is to the master branch, then the core team will have no time to check that, because they are already busy with fixing bugs in the upcoming release. So that might take some months even. And be patient, but stay in touch. Once they comment your pull request, be ready to make relevant changes. So don't be responsible for what you have done. And even if you have waited for a year, that also might occur. Please stay in touch still and be ready to finish your PR, because that's your contribution and that's your satisfaction, which I explained in the beginning. So here are some useful articles to read. Basically, there's nothing unusual here. Is basically some links to the Symfony documentation. This is the best article on merging and rebasing, which at some time I recommend to my colleagues when I explain them this Git feature, and how to work with forks, how to update the upstream, how to synchronize the changes. So GitHub itself has a really nice documentation on that, so check that out. And that's it. Thank you very much. We'll have a hack day as the 3rd day of the conference. I will be there, and I'm ready to help you to contribute. We can solve some issues together, so please come, and let's contribute to Symfony. Thank you all.